In the last video, we went ahead and set up the quick start for Angular 2, and we have our application up and running, which right now is just an H1 heading. So now what we're going to do is start to create our components and implement our Bootstrap theme. Alright, so if we go to getbootstrap.com and go to getting started, and then examples, which I think I need to make this a little wider, and then click examples, and we have this right here, this Jumbotron. Okay, this is basically what we're going to be turning into an Angular 2 application, and we're going to separate, for instance, the Navbar will have its own component, the Jumbotron, and then we'll have a home and an about component. Alright, so to include Bootstrap, I'm not going to download everything. What I'm going to do is use the CDN, so we can just include a script tag in our HTML file. So let's grab this CSS link and we'll open up index.html. We'll go right here and say link rel equals style sheet, and let's paste this link in. Okay, and then we'll do the same for the JavaScript. Copy that, and we're going to put this right above the ending body tag. Okay, now in order to use the Bootstrap JavaScript file, we need to have jQuery, so let's get that through the CDN as well. Okay, I'm just going to grab, let's see, jQuery 1 uncompressed, and then grab this right here and paste that in. Okay. So now if we save that and we go back to our application and reload, well, it actually reloads on its own. You'll see that the font is now different because it's now seeing the Bootstrap CSS. So let's start with the Navbar. We'll work from the top to bottom. So if I go ahead and do a Control U, we can see the source code for this this sample template. And what I'm going to do is, actually I'm not going to do it yet, but we're going to get this nav tag and all the content inside. But before we do that, let's go to our app folder, and we're going to create a new folder called components. Alright, now you can structure things however you'd like, but I usually like to have a components folder, and then inside that have a folder for each component. Okay, so let's create another folder called Navbar. Alright, and then inside there we're going to create a file called navbar.component.ts. Okay, always remember the TS for TypeScript. And you can see that it automatically compiles the JS and also a JS map file, but we want to strictly work in the TS file. Now what I'll do is copy what we have in our core app component, and then we'll paste it in our Navbar component. Okay, we want to keep this line up here. Selector, I'm going to change that to Navbar, and for now I'm just going to put in Navbar test for our template, and then of course we need to change the class to Navbar component. Okay, so let's save that. Now, as I said before, all of our components are going to be basically nested under our main app component. So let's go to that file, and we're going to have to include our Navbar, or import our Navbar component. Okay, and that's going to be from, and we want to go into the components folder /navbar folder /navbar.component. Okay, we don't need to include the TS extension. Alright, now when we include our component, we also have to add it as a directive inside of our decorator. So we're going to put a comma here, and we're going to say directives, and then that takes an array of directives. So we want to include Navbar component. Oh, I have a dot here. That should be a comma. Okay, and then inside there we're going to have a Now if we want to actually include the navbar content, then we have to put that in our template here. So let's go right after the H1 and let's say navbar. Alright, I'm not sure why we have this dot here. I mean that looks fine, so let's go ahead and save it and go back to our, oh, you can see it's already there, navbar test. Okay, and we actually don't need this H1, so I'm going to get rid of that. Now if we leave this how it is, this line, we're not going to be able to separate our content here on different lines unless we concatenate, but there's a really easy way to get around that with ES6 syntax, and the way we do it is get rid of these single quotes, and we want to use a backtick, which is the key that's to the left of the number 1 key. Alright, just like that, and then we can actually separate things on different lines, which is really nice. Alright. So now what I want to do is go back to that source code that we have here for the Bootstrap template, and I'm going to grab that the nav tag here. Okay, and we'll copy that, and if we go to our navbar component, get rid of this and put in our backticks, and then paste in that HTML, save it, and now you can see we have our navbar. Now I want to do a few things here. One, I want to get rid of the form, so we're just going to go from here to here and just get rid of that. Alright, and then also let's change, well, I guess we could do that after. Let's get rid of this navbar fixed top class, and then I also want to change this navbar inverse into navbar default, which will make it a light color. Alright, and then save that. Okay, so now the navbar looks like that. Now instead of having all of this HTML in our component file, that can be kind of messy, so what we can do is create a new file in our navbar component folder, and we'll call it navbar.component.html. Okay, and then we can actually take all of this and we'll cut it, paste it in there, save, and then go back, and instead of using template, we're going to say template URL. Okay, and then right here we're going to say navbar.component.html. Okay, if we save it now, we try to load it, we're going to get an error here. If we look at the console, okay, we're getting this 404 error. Now, in order for this to work, we could add an absolute path, or we could go right here and say module ID and set that to module.id, save, and now it works. Okay, so in order to not have to use an absolute path here, we need to include this. So now what I want to do is I want to show you how we can have component properties. Okay, and with this component, the navbar, I want to make the project name or a logo, whatever you want to call this, a property. So to do that, we're going to go into our class here, navbar component, and let's set project name as a property. And since we're using TypeScript, we can actually assign it to a type. So we'll say string. Okay, you can also use access identifiers. We're going to make this private. Okay, so we have this project name. Now, in order to change that or assign or declare it, we can create a constructor. Alright, and if you've used any kind of object-oriented programming, you probably know that a constructor is basically a function that runs when your object is instantiated or created. So this will run automatically. So let's set this dot project name, and we'll set it to my website. Okay, if we want to access any of our properties up here, then we want to use the this keyword. Okay, so what we want to do now is save that, and we can go into the HTML, and where we want to put it, the project name, we're just going to use double curly braces, and we'll say project name. Alright, save it, go back, and now you can see we get my website. Alright, so that's how you can assign properties and use them. So I think that's going to be good. We have our Navbar component set up. So in the next video, we're going to kind of do the same thing for the Jumbotron component, and we'll do a couple other things as well. Alright, so I'll see you in the next video.